Hey there, Canadian wealth secret seekers. Today, you are getting a piece of our latest addition to the podcast. We are considering doing a weekly secret sauce episode each and every week, which means we're going to experiment with a new format, a new episode format, so we can release a second episode each and every week. We're going to keep them short and we're going to get right to the point. And today, we're going to use our first secret sauce episode topic is going to be all about the FIRE movement and even some of those who might consider wealth as living on very little and working as very little as possible. So what triggered me to, really just off the cuff record this episode and share it to you to see what you're thinking here on the podcast was that I was listening to my regular podcast routine of all kinds of great shows. And this one show in particular, which I love, has great messaging around it, was actually unpacking this financial freedom number, right? If you're familiar with the FIRE movement, FIRE is financial independence, retire early. And they were talking about creative ways to stay in the lowest tax bracket. And while the host on the show has reached their financial freedom number, and that's fantastic, what concerns me about the FIRE movement is that many on that path may not be fully understanding how much they're actually going to need to reach a financial freedom number and whether that financial number or freedom number would actually work for them to live a lifestyle that they would actually enjoy. So, for example, in this particular episode, they were talking about a discussion about the Canadian or Canada Child Benefit, the CCB, and finding ways that you can try to report as a little income to stay under the combined household income level of $35,000 in order to receive the maximum benefit per child in your household. Now, of course, if I could do this and still sustain, a lifestyle that I enjoy and that I'm currently living, then of course, all for it. Don't get me wrong. However, not only do I see this living a financially free life, under 35,000 as very difficult for my own household, it would be something that I also wonder about is like, how are we going to fund the rest of our lifestyle? So as many people would know, even if let's say you are renting or let's say you have paid off a mortgage and you are living financially free and you're reporting under $35,000 in annual earnings for your household to get that CCB amount, that's still quite a small budget. I'm not saying it cannot be done, but my wonder would be, is that how many people out there are actually working towards that financial freedom number and actually living within those those constraints. So that's something that I'd like to think about. The second thing I'm thinking about when I think about wealth is not trying to take advantage of government-sponsored programs. So, I'm thinking about the CCB as being provided by the government. Although I don't agree with a lot of the spending that our government does, the purpose is to help those families that are truly struggling. So trying to find ways to maximize that benefit when in reality, I'm supposedly at a financial freedom stage of life where I don't have to work if I don't want to me seems like the opposite of what we're trying to achieve with CCB. Now, don't get me wrong, probably going to take that number if that's the amount that I'm able to show on my income tax. However, that's a very, very difficult thing to do. Ironically, in the same episode, they talked and sort of made a little bit of a joke about, permanent life insurance and how that's not something that people want to be considering. And in reality, I'm wondering how I could possibly keep my stated income below $35,000 based on only my tax-free savings account and, whatever RRSPs we're going to pull out and, what else are we going to use? We're probably going to have to leverage against some other assets unless I'm living a very, very low cost or low expense lifestyle. Again, no judgment, but I'm a fairly frugal person. And I know that that number would be very difficult for us to sustain, even if we had the support of the CCB. All right. So the other point that really popped into my mind here that really was a bit of a concern is this idea of shoving as much into your RRSP as possible and actually deferring as much and as long on the taxes as you can, even though at death, if there's too much in there, which there probably would be if you're taking out the minimum amount out of your RSP each year, you're going to get taxed at about 53, 54% if you're here in Ontario. That was sort of advocated on the show, which to me does not make any sense whatsoever. It seems that you are not utilizing that income because you're not willing to push yourself maybe into one of the other lower tax brackets, let's say, and utilize some other tax-free buckets that we should be putting in place on this wealth building journey. One major area of concern that I have looking for that financial freedom number also is this disconnected understanding of what you're spending now, what you're earning now, what you're spending now, and then what you're contributing to help you generate that financial freedom number. All right. So for example, I want to just give you a simple example. A teacher in Ontario, my wife is still a teacher, T4 employee for one of the public boards here in Ontario. She is earning over $100,000 a year because she's at the top of the grid. She's been working for almost 20 years. And if she continues to work to her 85 factor, that'll put her at about 30 years in this job. She is anticipating receiving $60,000 or so in retirement income, which of course puts you almost at double the $35,000 required for taking advantage of the Canada Child Benefit Plan. And of course, our children will actually be quite a bit older and not living with us anymore by the time she reaches that number. But here's the part that's really challenging is that that's one income, and most people are struggling to live off of one six-figure income currently. Now, again, children are gone. Maybe the mortgage is gone. Maybe you're not buying fancy cars. I don't know what that lifestyle is. However, I don't see looking at that 60,000, what we see right now is a lot of teachers that are getting to the 85 factor and actually working longer because they actually can't sustain their lifestyle because the pension will drop too dramatically and their lifestyle requires more income than the pension is going to provide. So let's talk about another scenario. Chatting with a listener recently, a listener reached out to us. They have a 5-year plan to reach quote unquote FIRE. They're young, which is great. They earn over $100,000 a year, which is great. Amazing person, amazing attitude, dedicated to doing the learning. However, as of now, the 5-year goal to attain that financial freedom number is actually massively unrealistic when we look at their current lifestyle expenses, which is coming in at around, say, $60,000 pre-tax dollars, and the amount of assets that they're accumulating right now. So the thought on this call was that $100,000 in a tax-free savings account is going to be enough for them in 5 years to be able to reach this quote unquote financial freedom number. When I let them know that $1 million in tax-free income, which again, we can't do inside the TFSA unless you get a 10x return on your 100,000 that you can get in there. She needs about 10 times what she was anticipating in her mind in order to get to that 60,000, assuming her return is 6% per year annualized, which again, markets go up, markets go down, and that can impact things as well. So while big, audacious financial freedom goals are amazing, the only way they can really come true is by consistently and intentionally planning, implementing, reflecting, and revising those plans. That is the secret sauce for this particular episode. Okay. So I've got to be honest. It's rare when I find a client whose goal is to get to a place, a financial freedom number, where they can spend less money than they're currently spending now. For most, they want to at least maintain their lifestyle. Maybe they might want to trim certain things in their budget, but most of the clients that we work with are trying to find a way to at least or at minimum replace the income they have. And usually they actually don't feel comfortable and confident to do so until they actually have more than enough money coming in, because of course, uncertainties can arise. All right. So this is that most ironic part about these fire seekers is about that anti-permanent insurance. We talk about this idea of index funds and so forth, and those are all amazing. They can provide great wealth opportunities. But then when we hear things like kicking the can on an RRSP and then getting taxed at 54% on whatever you accumulated in there as being a logical move is really not a logical way to go about things. So what I want you to be doing is that if you are a Canadian wealth secret seeker and you have a goal to reach your financial freedom number, but you simply aren't interested in sitting on the beach at 40 years old, 50 years old, whatever the age is that you're hoping to reach that number, but rather you want to create financial freedom that allows you to bring value to the world through the actions that bring you joy without the worry of where your next paycheck comes from, then I think you're in the right place here in our podcast. So feel free to reach out to us if that sounds like you, where you're looking to build wealth so that you have more time freedom, more comfort, more financial freedom to do the work you love, but not necessarily earn little, earn less, or do less in order to be able to achieve that goal. You should be reaching out to us at CanadianWealthSecrets.com/discovery. And this is our first of hopefully many Canadian Wealth Secret Sauce episodes that we're going to be planning to do weekly in short, raw, and unedited formats. So do us a solid and let us know, what do you think about this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave us a rating and review. Let us know, because if we don't hear from you, we're not going to know if this content is what you are after or what you feel can actually help you along your journey. You can also reach out to us on social media by searching for Canadian Wealth Secrets on all platforms. And depending on if we hear from you, maybe we'll see you with a secret sauce episode next week. Take care.